breaking news around the world. Tensions high over North Korea. Overnight, the U.S. and South Korea responded to the North Korean missile launch with a show of force, launching our own missiles into the sea off Korea. And the U.S. confirmed that the North Korean missile was a long-range ICBM. President Trump leaves this morning for his G20 summit with world leaders. Ahead of that, he's going to stop in Poland. The White House says he will deliver a major speech there tomorrow. And on Friday, his first meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The big question, will Trump confront Putin over Russian interference in our presidential election? We're going to have more on that ahead. First, the escalating crisis with North Korea and our chief global affairs anchor, Martha Raddatz. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, George. A very strong statement this morning from the top American commander in South Korea, saying that self-restraint is the only thing keeping the U.S. and South Korea from going to war with North Korea after its breakthrough missile launch. Overnight, the U.S. and South Korea responding with a show of military power. A volley of short-range missiles fired into the waters off the east coast of the Korean peninsula. That coming just hours after North Korea successfully test-launched a two-stage intercontinental ballistic missile that could potentially reach Alaska. A major breakthrough for a country that has long sought a missile to directly threaten the U.S. The country's leader, Kim Jong-un, there to oversee the July 4th launch, calling it a package of gifts for America on its Independence Day. The ICBM was launched straight up into the atmosphere, reaching an altitude of 1,700 miles, likely so it did not overfly Japan or Russia. But if the North Koreans angled the trajectory for distance instead of height, experts say the missile could travel well over 4,000 miles, not just in range of Alaska, but very close to the U.S. mainland. Celebrated as a success by a North Korean newsreader and applauded by the public, the missile, called the final step in creating a confident, powerful nuclear state that can strike anywhere on Earth. In reaction, Russia and China proposing a moratorium on North Korea's nuclear tests and a halt to U.S. and South Korean large-scale military exercises, proposals which have been outright rejected. Just days ago, President Trump warning Kim Jong-un to stand down.
The era of strategic patience with the North Korean regime has failed. Many years, and it's failed. And frankly, that patience is over.
Before he took office, President Trump warned that he would not allow North Korea to develop a nuclear weapon capable of reaching the U.S. They have still not perfected that, but they have now come one big step closer, and it is unclear, George, what he can do about it.
Okay, Martha, thanks very much. Let's get more on this now from our military analyst, Stephen Ganyard. Steve, let's begin with that North Korean missile test. We know it's an ICBM. We know the missile could reach potentially the United States, but to have a missile be able to strike the United States, they need to perfect a nuclear warhead, one that could survive re-entry into the atmosphere.
That's right, George. We know that we've seen a miniaturized nuke. We've seen pictures of that. We know that they now have a rocket that could reach the United States. But the real trick is to be able to have that nuke on that rocket survive the high heat of re-entry. We know they're working on this. We saw that they actually addressed the warhead temperatures. So when does this happen? A year, 2 years, maybe 3. But we need to remember we have consistently underestimated the progress of the North Korean program.
Right. They have been moving relatively quickly, and we have relatively few options to stop it.
We do. Right now, the U.S. is going to go to the UN. They'll talk to the UN. The UN hasn't been terribly helpful in terms of sanctions. So this is going to be actually a unilateral effort by the U.S. The Department of Defense is going to have to play defense, but the real offense here is going to be the U.S. Department of Treasury imposing sanctions on North Korean illicit activities.
And our missile test overnight, provocative as well. The general who is in charge in South Korea says this was designed to be a precision strike at enemy leadership.
George, first thing, if you look at it, why would the U.S. launch these short-range missiles in response to a long-range missile? But General Brooks's comment this morning was very clear. This was a demonstration of precision fires targeted at the North Korean leadership. Kim Jong-un needs to remember that he is target number one in the event of his hostilities.
Stephen Ganyard, thanks very much. Amy?
All right.